What's up, guys? This is Board Game Roamer, and I'm here with an unboxing. This is not necessarily a new game, but it is new to me. This is Anachrony by Mindclash Games. It is a really awesome game. I remember when it came out, and I was like, but I watched several playthroughs, and I think it's going to be really fun multiplayer. It's going to be really awesome solo, and so I did manage to get it. Found it at a deal. And got it, and I also got the Exo-Suit Commander pack, which is, I believe, a recent release. And so we're going to open these up. Like I said, this isn't new, but it's new to me, so I'm going to go ahead and put it on the channel and check it out, and hopefully get a playthrough in here sometime soon. So let me just first start out with this box is massive. Oh my gosh, this box is so big. I did not realize how big this box was looking at the playthroughs. I mean, I knew that it took a decent amount of table space, but this box is heavy. The two boxes together are heavy. I think I want to say that the weight on the package was like 17 pounds, but it was, I mean, it was for both of them, but still, this box is big. I mean, just to give you an example, Stuffed Fables, which is one that we've recently opened, right, is, well, I guess I should put it down here. Like, it just barely fits in here. So you've got this much more of the box at the bottom than Stuffed Fables. It's basically the same width. Absolutely crazy. So, yeah, let's take a look and see what we got. Other than a really heavy box. Oh my gosh, that's so heavy. Okay. Okay, so first thing freaks me out. I live in the US, this is going to be a problem. Fortunately, this was in the bottom. So, whew. That scared the crap out of me. I'm not gonna lie. Alright, so let's take a look at it. So, lots of pictures, examples, it looks like. Pretty good step by step. All the different actions, which is very helpful. How to trade. The modules, so you have like the main game, and you have these modules you can add that allows you to do extra things or changes the game rules in some way, which I would think is really awesome, because when you talk about adding replayability, man, that's going to add some serious replayability. And you can mix and match for longer games or more strategic games or less strategic games, I suppose. It has a really nice iconography page on the back. I know it's kind of hard to see, but it's got a really nice iconography page on the back, so when you start wondering what's on these boards and what these symbols mean, there you go. And then here's some alternative rules to do things. Also, it's going to tell you specifically the tiles, so the different building tiles, what they do, what they mean, which is helpful because iconography, I think, is pretty good based on what I've seen in the playthroughs, but you know, watching the playthroughs and then actually sitting down and doing it on your own are two very different things, so that is something to consider. Okay, well, this busted out of the edge, but that's alright, I guess. As long as everything's in here. Oh, we got all kinds of stuff. Okay, so, I think this is the main board. No, holy crap. Okay, well, that explains why it's so big. Okay, so let's see if I can get this semi-organized by size, so I can present this in a meaningful way. Okay, so what have we got? So these are the if I remember correctly. Now remember, like I said, I've just seen the playthroughs, a few playthroughs. These are the. Let me get these kind of out of the way because there are 4 paths. Okay, each path has their own board, which is going to tell you what you got to do to evacuate and different things you can do. What you start with as far as your starting components and a place to put your leader card. And there's an A side and there's a B side, and I think 3, 2, 2, 1. 3, 2, 2, 1. There's 4 of those. 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 2. Yeah, the evacuation requirements are different. I think one side maybe a little bit. The scoring is different. Maybe one side you score less or something. I don't know, but the scoring is different. What you start out with does not appear to change, though. 4, 2, 2, 1, 3, 4, 2. Yeah. So your evacuation, and basically evacuation is not a requirement per se. You're just going to miss out on a lot of points if you don't do it. But you have to meet certain requirements, and everybody has a certain set of requirements they have to meet. This is the face. So what happens is during the first several eras, which is essentially rounds, I guess you would almost say, you have this sitting down, and then once the meteor hits, this gets flipped over, and at that point, that's when you can evacuate. And you can see here, you're going to start. You're going to start evacuating first, second, third, fourth to evacuate. And I think you get some bonuses or something like that. I can't remember. But there's some actions that are involved with that, so that's pretty cool. That actually sits on the main board. I'll show you that in just a second. This, I think this is the Doomsday track. So this is an extra sideboard example of a module. This is not part of the core game. You can play with this if you want to play with this module, or you don't have to play with it at all. And that'll be detailed in the book. I won't look that up right now because this is just an unboxing. I'm going to skip the main board just for a second. So here are the faction boards, and let me tell you, these babies are massive. I mean, just so you can see, that's halfway between the end of my fingers and my elbow, basically. These babies are huge. So what you're going to do is you're going to put your mechs here. This is where you have your buildings. You're going to track your time anomalies, or sorry, your paradoxes. And when you get an anomaly, your time tracks. And when you go back in time, that's going to give you some experience. Or not experience, it's going to give you some points, victory points at the end of the game. So you're going to track all your people. This is going to show you what you got to pay in order to fire up your non-free exosuits. As people die, you lose morale, or you can possibly gain morale. You have some free actions you can take, and again, all these are different to an extent for everybody. Like in this case, if you don't have to make this particular path, only gets 1 water, whereas some may get 2. There are some of these, for instance here, you can, instead of having to pay a core, right, like on this one, you can pay 1 of any one of those 3 resources, right? So there is some difference, and that pretty much looks the same. It pretty much looks the same. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. I think all the costs are the same over here to build buildings, but this is different, and that does make a huge difference. So you have 5 different factions. Or actually, you have 4, and then one of these is the Chronobot, if I remember. Yeah, this is the Chronobot. So these 4 are the 4 that are playable by you, right? So you can put up to 4 people. Maybe 5 with expansion, but I think, yeah, it's still 4 with the exosuits. This 5th board is actually a special board if you want to play the solo against what they call Chronobot. And so what happens is you basically have these tracks, you have these arrows here, and each one of these spaces, he starts off with these numbers in these spaces, and you roll a dice, and as you roll the numbers, then all these tokens start to shift, and he takes the action of the one that's moving wherever it's at. So he's going to be doing things like jumping back in time, he's going to be upping his morale, he's going to be trying to basically collect genius admins, engineers, or scientists, or the 4 resource cubes in order to give himself additional victory points, and he's going to be collecting buildings, up to 3 of each, also to get victory points. So that's what he's going to do. He basically has 6 mechs. He's got 6 mechs every time, and then once the meteor hits, he only has 4. But I mean, he's got 6 mechs. Of course, you somewhat control when he ends, because he doesn't go after you pass. I think I'm not 100% sure on that, but anyway, really neat. And the cool thing is, in watching several playthroughs, this is not one of those things where, like, once you figure out what his method is, then you can just like find a way to beat him easy, because he racks up points so quick. You really have to be really smart about what you pick and what you choose. And sometimes you're going to be doing something like, maybe you're going to go mining when you didn't want to mine, just to deny him one of these resources, or maybe you're going to go to the admin building, you send an admin out and grab somebody that he needs to complete his set, just so he can't complete his set. So it's really, it seems, when I first saw this board, when I look at this board, if I had not seen the playthrough, I'd say, well, it's pretty simple. I mean, just the stuff moves around. Once you figure out his pattern, then it's not like that at all. So don't let that throw you off. Alright. So now let's take a look at the actual game board. Now, the funny thing here, to me, is that you have 2 sides. You got a 2-player, you have a 2-player side and a 3-player side. Alright, so that's this side. That's this side. Okay. And then on the opposite side, you have a 4-player side. I'm not 100% sure what the difference is, but there's got to be one, or it wouldn't be. 3, 2. So the difference is, this has, on the 4-player side, you have a 3rd spot down here, whereas on the 2 and 3-player side, you only have 2 spots in each one of these columns. Other than that, I believe the board is identical. But just to give you an idea of how big the player mats are compared to the board, the actual game board, I mean, that's over half. Well, no, not over half. That's over 1/4 of the board. It's the size of your player mat. So these things are massive. But that's okay. Alright, so that's all of those boards. And then we have stacks and stacks and stacks of cardboard. Lots and lots of cardboard. So these are going to be tokens for research. These are going to be, they do give you, which I thought was kind of interesting. What I thought was kind of interesting was they gave you these cubes, which we'll see in a second. They also give you the same thing in cardboard. And this would be helpful if somebody has a hard time with the cubes, I guess, if it's easier for them to use those. If you lose some, I mean, you should have plenty between what's over here in the box, which these are actual translucent cubes for all the resources, including your water. That should be plenty, but if you don't have them. Then you also have these, right? If somebody just hoarded something, I suppose. Then each one of your buildings is on here. These are paradoxes that happen. These are the tokens that are for the solo game. Some tokens for points that you get, cores that you use. I'm assuming that these are probably, because I don't look like the standard ones. Yeah, those are probably like a module specific eras or something. But anyway, there's one. Let's see how many there are. There's one. Here's some more cards for your specific factions. Now, the Exo-Suit Commander pack that I have, that we'll look at here in a minute, will replace these cardboard tokens here. So these cardboard tokens represent your mechs, your exosuits that you will power up. But the Exo-Suit Commander pack actually turns all four factions plus the fifth faction, the solo Chronobot faction, if you will. All those are actual plastic exosuits that these keep turning these the wrong way. That these scientists, geniuses, etc. will slot into. So we'll look at that here in just a minute. That's what those are for. So there's two, and these are all the building tiles. There's 3 different types of buildings. You can see they got the numbers, so that's a reference in the book. 3 super projects, special buildings you can build that give you a lot of points, and at the end of the game, additional points. That's 4, 5, 6, 7, and 6, 7, and 8. So there's 8 things of cardboard. Now the funny thing is, to me, well, let me show you this. So then you have this deck of cards. These cards are cards that are going to tell you how many items come out during the turn for the mine, what units are going to be out there for available to hire if you take the hiring action, or whatever that equivalent is called. And then you got some custom dice. You have a couple of modifier dice. I'm not sure what those are. Then you have a couple dice that are actually have several dice that are special, so just let me pull them all out. So it comes with a standard D6, right? That is for the Chronobot when you're playing solo. Then you have these dice, and there's one set that has symbols, and one set symbols like this little clock and this microchip, this DNA question mark, and then you have shapes like circle, square, triangle. I think that's it. But these have to do with research. So when you take the research action, you set one and roll one, and you can get specific things researched if you want to. Then you have time anomaly. So at the end of your turn, when you warp in items from the future to yourself, if you want to, then you have to roll this, and you potentially get 1 or 2 of these time anomalies. And if you get too many, you get a paradox. And basically a paradox is a building that goes on your player mat that has negative points that you're basically going to have to spend resources and essentially kill one of your people that you've hired, that you've recruited. I think it's called a recruit action, that you've recruited to get rid of that. Or it's going to be negative points at the end of the game. You cannot get rid of it, but it is going to be negative points at the end of the game. You can also, warp in a lot of stuff each turn to help you do things, but at the end of the game, if you don't pay for it, then it's going to be a lot of negative points. So you do have to do that, and that'll make more sense as you continue. Once we do an actual playthrough. So then there's these are for these little stands are for something that I don't know. This is the sheet that you use to calculate your points, buildings, morale track, time track, you know, era, tokens, etc., etc. Sheet for you to do that. Then we have these cards. Alright, so, oh, there's the German version. Okay. Game phases. Spielphasen. Let's see here. So here's some of the factions. Let's see. Is this the? These are different people. Just making sure. Yeah. So you have all these different people. See. And they all have different abilities. Tiger. Oops. Yeah. So basically each faction has two heroes. So for example, this faction has these two heroes, and you can see they have different abilities, right, that they can do. Some of them are passive, like this is a passive ability, whereas this one, you get some tokens that lets you take a free action on your turn. So normally you can only take one action, but you can use a token and take a free action on your turn before another action or after another action. So this is like, I don't know what this means, but this is a special action for him, whereas you have something like this. I know what this one, if I remember correctly, I know what this one is. Basically, these guys, passively, you have 4 mechs free instead of 3 after the meteor strikes. And here, I think you can maybe add or get rid of paradoxes or something. I don't know. But anyway, you essentially have one passive, one leader with a passive ability, one with an active ability, and you choose which one you want to play when you start. And then of course we have a really nice round card. It tells you the steps. So prepare step, refill the mine and recruit pools, reveal a new super project, shift building stacks. Paradox, whoever has the most warp tiles on each timeline rolls for them. Power up your suits, you warp in anything you want, you take actions, and then you clean everything up. So that's just a quick, so you can step through the phases, so that's really cool. I like that. And it doesn't give you all the details, but it does definitely give you enough to, once you get going, it makes sense. Let's check these out. I bet Timeline Protection Doctrine. I bet these are probably for like the Doomsday. Yeah, these are probably like objectives or something. Get these for objectives. And again, this probably has to do with a module, because like I said, there's a couple different modules in the base game, and then the Exo-Suit Commander pack adds 2 or 3 modules, I think, too. So I'm sure that's what all this is. Colony coordination, resistant genotype. I'm just looking through here to see. Well, looks like English to me. So I'm not really sure. So believe it or not, that actually, let's double check one more thing here. Make sure they haven't stuck anything in the sides of this insert. Does not appear to be. So, believe it or not, that's the entirety of the core box. Which, I mean, just really kind of seems crazy because you'd think there would be a lot more to it than that, but there's really not. There's really not, in terms of just raw stuff for this game. There's not just a ton of stuff at all. So let's see. Let me get this. Let me get all these things put back in here temporarily. And there does seem to be a little bit of room. I do know. Figure that out. Oh shoot. Meeple Source, or Meeple, not Meeple Source, not Meeple Source, Meeple Realty. Meeple Realty has a really cool insert for this that will actually house the core box and this, the Exo-Suit Commander pack. So like I said, what does this add? Let's take a look at the back. It's going to add 2 new modules, Guardians of the Council and Pioneers of New Earth module. AntLab Games, if you go to their website and watch their playthrough, they use this Pioneers of New Earth module, if I remember correctly, and this is their favorite module they said. So they have a really good playthrough. But let's take a look at this. So like I said, this is mostly modules, and then essentially you're adding the modules, and then you're mostly adding all these mechs, exosuits. So here's some cards for the modules. We won't take a look at those specifically. Then we've got some, again, I know these have to do with the modules. Let's see if I can open these up. Most importantly, if I can open these up without destroying the product. And here we go. Alright, so what do we got? So we've got, these look like, so you can see on the back of these, each faction has a specific mech that you can use. And then, this is, if I remember right, is for the adventure module, Pioneers of New Earth. Basically, you can upgrade your mech, and you go on adventures, and there's like a value that you have in order to meet, in order to complete the mission, essentially. And then here's a D6. Basically, this is just a an extra die. It's a D6 with some symbols on it, but all the symbols are, it looks like they're all the same. Yeah, they're all a fist. So just a upgraded D6, essentially. That I believe is Chronobot. So this must be one of the modules he uses, or adds something for solo play for him, maybe. I don't know. Something like that. And then we've got some cards. And then we have German. Oh, we have German. Looks like we have German, French, and English in this. So there you go. There's the rule book. Let's see here. What is that? What is that? What is that board for? The Guardian. Oh, Guardian of the Council. That's what that board's for. There's adventure cards, adventure reference cards. And so what this book will tell you is it's going to tell you how to change. So if you want to play with the Pioneers of New Earth module, here's the setup instructions, things that you put out, things that you may change in terms of the decks to add or remove, and then how how it may add actions. Like for instance, this is the adventure action. So this is where you're gonna take a different action to go on one of these adventures, and then calculate based on your die roll and your exosuit whether you complete it or not, and those sorts of things. So that is pretty short. Looks like 9 pages, 11 pages, but the starting on page, the last 3 pages are telling you exactly what the cards mean, what a success or fail test means on the cards. So again, just kind of explaining the iconography out. And those cards, and then, oh wow, these are a lot bigger than I thought, actually. There we go, it's got tape on it right there. It's got tape over there. Looks like there's not no tape over there. Cool. Wow. Okay. This is pretty cool. I knew they looked neat, but they're much bigger in person, and they look pretty freaking awesome. So here's what I was telling you. So on the top of all of them, I think in all of them, yeah, and all of them, they look like whatever. Let's see if I can get this to focus a little bit. This guy's got wings. You've been drinking Red Bulls. Not a sponsor. But you put your people in here, right? Before you would just like set them on a card. Now you put this on a space, and it just sits there on the space, and then you got your little guy in it, so you know. It doesn't change anything mechanics wise of the game, but it does make the game look. And these are. I mean, I don't think they're single mold. I guess I could be wrong, but I don't think, well, I say that, maybe they are. I'm trying to look to see if I see like a mold line or, yeah, it looks like a sprue place. But you got one for each faction, so you got like this little griffin looking guy, or you got 6 for each faction. Then you got like War of the Worlds squid looking dude, and I'm sure you could paint these up really, really nice. You've got this didn't even get glued. That's why this like drilling. I can't see that very well, can you? Drilling looking thing. I might try to take some pictures of these and include them at the end. You got looks like a vine with armor. Yeah, you really can't tell what they are. And then of course you have Chronobot with his one face, and then his faces on each shoulder. That's pretty neat. So really, like literally, get this back in here. Boom. 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 Nope. Yep. Boom. That's really mostly what the Exo-Suit adds. It's all these minis. That's 30 minis that are not really that many, and then 2 additional modules. So I know that was quick, there wasn't a lot of detail, but hopefully you have an idea of Anachrony or Anachrony or whatever you want to call it, by Mindclash Games. Super awesome game. Go check it out. As soon as I get a chance, I will do a solo playthrough of this, and we will play with some of the modules. Hopefully, eventually I'll get through all the modules. Maybe do some solo playthroughs and include each module. Maybe do a separate one with each module in it, so you can really see how that module works. And yeah, so thank you guys for watching. I am the Board Game Roamer, and I will see you, ladies and gentlemen, in the next episode. Bye, guys.